you think about the mayor. I give her credit because she was asked about this, of course, on MSNBC, where they're like foaming at the mouth. They're blaming racism. Of course, when in doubt, go back to that. Go back to the well. They're trying to say that he's racist against young black kids. It's, I'm sorry. You want to offer a better opportunity, and that means making sure that those kids on the streets anywhere have safety, so that there are alternatives, that they can go to school, that they can go to work. Look at this. The mayor of DC, she's like, okay, you know what? I realize it's popular rhetoric on the campaign trail, but the reality is we need the help. I give her credit for this.
One of the things that we have seen over and over from the president, from his team, Stephen Miller saying it's like Baghdad in Ethiopia. They seem to hold their harshest criticism sometimes for cities that are majority black and brown. Do you see that, and what do you think that means?
I think that I have been dealing kind of with this issue for a number of years. It's kind of easy fodder on the campaign trail. But now we're talking about governing, and my job is to focus on making sure our city is running well, and people enjoy a great quality of life. And I think we're doing a really good job. We do need the federal government's help, as I mentioned, because they have an outsized influence on our criminal justice system. We need more prosecutors. We need more judges. There are other ways to help. Even we want to rebuild our jail, and there are ways that the feds can help with that. But also just doing their part, cutting the grass, fixing the fountains, making sure that federal law enforcement is doing all of the policing that they can do. And I just have to say thank you to MPS, FBI, ATF, who've always worked cooperatively with us, and we expect that they will again.
Okay. You know what? Good for her. She's actually welcoming the help. She's like, okay, you want to help? I'll take it. We need the help. And she's right. They do need the help. And yet, again, I'm looking at NPR, guys. NPR, they are just unbelievable. I'm so sick of it. And they're just bitter, because they lost all their extra funding from the State Department, right? Let's take a look at this right here. I was reading their piece today. They're trying to say that this is somehow racist, that Trump's primary targets are those he describes as criminals. In this case, often teenagers, many of them black. Washington has struggled, they write, at times with violence caused by young. This is so funny. At times Washington has struggled, at times with young men who sometimes ride motorcycles and four-wheelers. Trump spoke about them at length Monday. The city's Metro Police Chief, Pamela Smith, was asked about the issue in a separate Monday press conference, and she said, quote, "We want young people to be safe in our city. We want them to be able to enjoy the activities of our city, but," now this is interesting, this is the police chief, she said, "we're not going to tolerate the kind of criminal activity that we've seen in the past." Okay, now you have both the mayor, a black woman, and the head of the police, also a black woman, saying, yeah, we're going to crack down. I mean, I don't know where you guys were in the past. Suddenly now you're not going to tolerate it. Good. I don't know why you tolerated it earlier, but better late than never, I guess. Maybe you're figuring out you got to play ball here with the new president of the United States who means business. But think about this. I mean, who is in charge, right, of the DC police? Who is in charge? Well, we got a funny shot going on. There we go. I think that was my phone. Who's in charge of the DC police? It's a woman who actually has a rather interesting background. Very interesting background. This is Pamela Smith, ladies and gentlemen, and she's not exactly who you would think of for a job like this, only because her background doesn't quite match up to be, it has nothing to do with her being a woman, nothing to do with her ethnicity, and everything to do with, she really hasn't worked as a, dare I say, real police officer, because I don't think, working in the canine department, training dogs or training drivers or actually being the DEI chief. Like, I just don't think that really, or park ranger. Like, I mean, look, I'm just a layperson here, right? You know, I don't have any real police experience, but it doesn't seem to me that is a qualification for becoming head of the police. So here's a little bit about her, courtesy of Wiki. Take it with a grain of salt because it's Wikipedia. But it says that she became head of the police department after first serving as its chief equity officer. So she went in as the chief equity officer in 2023. Woohoo! Like, that's a real compelling job, right? And then got promoted by the mayor to run the police force. Here's a little bit more about her. Pamela, after college, moved to New York, where she worked as a seasonal park ranger at the Gateway National Recreation Center. Again, you know, like Parks and Rec. Like, that's not exactly DC police material, shall I say. And she was a social worker. Oh my goodness, she's just checking all the boxes, right? But none that would actually qualify you for being head of police in DC. She was a social worker out on Staten Island. Great. She worked in the foster care system. Apparently, she had been a product of foster care at one point, so she's giving back to her community. Great. Okay, again, doesn't qualify you for being head of the police force there in Washington, D.C. And then we've got more on her. Okay, look at this. She worked again as United States Park Police in 1998 as a patrol officer in the San Francisco field office. But is she still like parks when she's in San Francisco? I'd like to clarify that. And then she got the big gig. She got to train the cute little German Shepherds, right? The canine unit. I mean, really? Okay, so she became the canine unit handler, and then went on to help law enforcement driver training in a program in Georgia. So again, I'm just looking at this, and I don't know how on earth, except that we had a sudden push in society with the wokeness and the DEI, and suddenly this woman gets promoted to run the DC police. I mean, that's a big, big jump, right? From the canine trainer and the driver teacher and the park ranger to this. So here's where it all came together. In May 2022, she became the chief equity officer assigned to the executive office of the chief of police in DC, and she led the department's efforts on diversity, equity, and inclusion. She was really focused on DEI. She supervised the whole DEI operation, and in the interim, I guess now the numbers are a little bit better, but don't forget, you're not allowed to arrest, certain people if they're a certain demographic because you don't want that on the record, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You have a whole lot of things going on, a lot of layers that have nothing to do with actually keeping a city safe. And this woman is running the whole shebang, and she has really, in my estimation, no qualification to be doing so. She's kind of this DEI queen. So why is she there? Well, I think we know why she's there, right? She has to be there because, she checks all the boxes, and they put her there. And these days are over. I mean, I would just say, Harvard had to learn it from the Supreme Court. Disney's having to learn it from the FCC head, Brandon Carr. You're actually violating the law if you're picking someone just because of their race, their ethnicity, their gender. You can't do that. It's like best man or woman, period, for the job. Okay, that's who we are as a nation. We're a meritocracy. You guys might not like it, but here's the reality. Well, I know you like it, but some other people out there, they don't like this because they want, what they call equal outcomes. They don't want equal opportunities. They want equal outcomes because they're all a bunch of socialists that frankly need to go and live in a socialist country where they'd be much happier, right? Go to Venezuela. Be my guest, for goodness sakes.